When can we get together again? Her voice was almost audible above the music as she inquired. My stomach turned over. Because the next time wasn't intended to come. With me, it wasn't even intended to be the first time. The candle between us was burning low as I gazed at her across the small table in the Chicago wine bar's corner. Her fingers were curled around the stem of her glass as if it were the only thing keeping her rooted, and her eyes were fixed on mine with hope and steadiness. Harper. Her name was that. Harper Lane. She wore a soft gray sweater, dark trousers, boots with some scuffs on the toes, and brown hair in a loose bun with a few strands hanging around her face. Not the kind that comes looking to wow the city. The kind that showed up as herself and left it to others to handle. I had spent the last hour and a half coping with it. I ought to have said it then. Liam is not my name. His brother is me. As a joke, as a favor, as a mess, he sent me here. From the beginning, I have been deceiving you. However, I didn't. I took a slow sip of my drink instead, feeling the guilt spread like heat across my chest, buying myself 5 more seconds. You hope there will be another time? I inquired. A hesitant little smile curled her lips. It depends, she remarked. Is there a regulation stating that blind dates are only permitted once? Before I could stop myself, I said, I think there's a rule that says you shouldn't switch people mid-appointment. Her head was cocked. What? Nothing, I blurted out. Wrong joke. Remember that I'm not funny? She smiled. Liam, you're funnier than you realize. Liam. I felt as though the name didn't belong to me, and it didn't. My older brother, who should have been seated here at this moment, owned it. My phone rang 2 hours ago while I was sitting on my couch in my Logan Square apartment, attempting to choose between Netflix and laundry. Liam, what's going on? I replied. Without saying hello or warming up, he continued. I need a favor. His style was that. I retorted. You still owe me for helping you move in January. What sort of favor? A large one, he remarked. And before you say no, keep in mind that I said nothing about the incident involving you and the high school copy room. I shut my eyes. You said we wouldn't discuss that topic ever again. He answered, then answer yes. I let out a sigh. What are you looking for? He referred to it as a blind date. You should go on it. For me. I took a seat. I apologize, but what? It's a setup, he said, as if it were nothing. A friend of a client. They made reservations for us at Parlor on Clark. 8 p.m. She believes she is going to meet me. I am unable to attend. Then withdraw. I answered. Reschedule. Or, I'm not sure, be honest. I am unable to cancel, he stated. This man is a major client who is completely enamored with the idea that we are all one big family. It turns into a full deal if I don't show up. He has already informed his wife, who in turn informed the buddy, who has most likely already informed her in their group chat. I might lose the account and appear like a jerk if I bail. So you want me to? What? Come on over and act like you? I inquired. He declared, You're my brother. It isn't acting. It's momentarily taking on a persona. There was no comedy in my laughter. That is the exact definition of acting. Ethan, hurry up, he said. You and I get a good enough look. Same height, same eyes, same dark hair. You arrive, spend an hour being charming, and give her the impression that the time spent together wasn't wasted. Then you claim that you're not seeking a serious relationship. Make a clean break. Everyone wins. She had a pleasant night, and I don't look like garbage. I answered, with the exception of the part where I protect your ego by lying to a stranger. He remained silent for a moment. Finally, he said, I trust you to be kind, which is why I'm asking. My other pals will act like it's a joke if I send them. You won't. He knows how to press the correct button. Damn him. This bothers me, I whispered. He said, Please, man. Just this once. I will owe you. Hugely. I detested the fact that big time with Liam had any real meaning. He was a decent sibling. Very annoying, but enjoyable. I glanced at the timepiece. 7:23 p.m. I said, I have no idea what she looks like. He retorted, She doesn't know what I look like either. That's what makes it so lovely. A friend-of-friend arrangement. No pictures were shared or social media stalkings made. Stalking, I automatically corrected. Anyway, just go, he said. Clark, please. 8 p.m. My name is on the reservation. Harper is her name. For the first time in your life, or something without a brand. Before I could respond, he hung up the phone. That's how I found myself entering a darkly lit wine bar with exposed brick walls and an excessive number of couples wearing a blue button-down shirt that I hardly wore. I said to the host, "Reservation for Liam Carter." He nodded and looked at the screen. "Your date has arrived already." In this manner, I was shoved by the words. "Your date." My pulse thumping, I followed him through the tangle of tables. The other half of me wanted to go away. Seeing who would consent to a blind date with my brother was the other half's goal. Then I caught sight of her, Harper, with her phone on the table and one hand absently fiddling with the edge of her napkin. She was seated at a two-top in the corner. Something loosened in her face when she spotted me when she looked up, as if I had just cleared some invisible bar by simply existing, and she had been half prepared for disappointment. She stood up a little and said, "Hello, Liam." For just a heartbeat, I paused. I then gave a nod. "Yes," I said. "Liam." Everything went wrong at that very time. For Harper wasn't the forgettable, gullible person I had hoped for. She has a keen mind. It's funny, the type of woman who confronted me as I attempted to sidestep serious inquiries. She inquired about my work in finance, which is Liam's area of expertise rather than mine in IT. I tried to avoid coming across as suspicious by avoiding specifics. Her entire face brightened when she described her work as an art teacher at Lincoln Park Elementary School. She laughed and remarked, "I'm covered in glue and glitter for the majority of the day. A child told me today that my hair looks like a tired waterfall." "I'm not sure if that's a compliment or not," I remarked. "It sounds poetic, as you might hear in a very truthful shampoo commercial." Her head tipped back as she laughed, genuinely laughed, and a movement occurred in my chest. I was to be lighthearted. I was expected to finish in an hour or two and then gracefully exit. I continued to probe her instead, regarding her pupils, regarding her decision to remain in Chicago after the majority of her relatives relocated to Arizona, about why she believed the artist had used so much blue in the painting on the wall behind her. She inquired about my family, and I meticulously removed the passage in which I claimed to be the brother I mentioned. After an hour and a half, she finally asked the one question I hadn't thought to ask. "When can we get together again?" She spoke softly, as if she was terrified of the response. I noticed the hope she was concealing and the small tightening of her fingers on the glass. I had many things I could have said. I could have told more lies. "Yes, without a doubt. Let's repeat this that I could have interrupted it. It was nice to meet you, but I don't think we're a match." I could have been honest and seen the entire night fall apart. Rather, I heard something that even startled me come out of my mouth. "That depends," I murmured gradually. "If someone has a valid reason for doing something really dumb, are you the kind of person who can forgive them?" Curiosity glowed behind them as she narrowed her gaze. "How foolish is that? The type where they accept something they ought to have refused," I remarked, "and then they run into someone who makes them regret what they did." My heart was beating so painfully. She gripped the glass more tightly. She questioned, "Liam, what did you do?" I suddenly realized that I couldn't continue to hide under his name. She questioned, "Liam, what did you do?" Like a brick falsehood, my true name thudded on my ribs. I considered doubling down for a moment, making a joke about oneself while grinning and trying to lighten the tone of the conversation. However, I recalled her remarks regarding her students, in which she stated that she never permitted them to get away with lying, even if it's to protect themselves. I recalled her expression when she laughed, totally uninhibited. "I have to stop doing this," I remarked. "I wasn't supposed to be here tonight." Although her face didn't shift much, I could see the slight alarm spark in her eyes. "What is meant by that?" I put down my glass. A wet ring was placed on the table by my hand. "It indicates that I wasn't the person you were supposed to meet." She became quite still. Like my ears were underwater, the bar's cacophony surged and then subsided. With care in every word, she questioned, "So who were you supposed to be?" "My sibling," I remarked. "Liam." She touched the glass's stem with her fingertips. She quickly put it down without dropping it. She said, "So you're not Liam." Once I shook my head. "No." Silence for a beat. "Please tell me your name," she said. What a straightforward question. It was more weighty than the entire confession. "Ethan," I said. I had a dry mouth. "Ethan Carter." For a moment, she seemed to be flipping the name over in her mind. "Ethan, not Liam. Your true name is that," she remarked. Not a query. "Yes." She folded her arms across her chest and reclined in her chair. The relocation caused more pain than I wanted to acknowledge and increased the distance between us. Describe, she said. So I did. I informed her of the call. Regarding the customer. Regarding Liam's anxiety over appearances and family vibes. When my brother requested, I was foolish enough to believe I could do it without harming anyone. So I protested, said no, and then gave in. I heard how incorrect it sounded when I said, this was supposed to be a small kindness. Be respectable, show up, and make sure you weren't humiliated. With a flat voice, she reiterated, a small kindness. By lying for 90 minutes about who you are. I answered, despising myself. Yeah, it sounds, when said that way. Sorry, she added. It sounds terrible. I took a swallow. You're correct. Yes, it does. As she gazed at me, I could practically see the small movie reel replaying every second of the night in her mind. Each time, I had sidestepped a query concerning my job. Each time she said, Liam, I hesitated a bit too long. She said, was anything real? Or did you just act the entire time? That's the issue. I stated, my chest constricted. There was too much truth to it. I reasoned that keeping it superficial would make things easier. Got through the night, made you giggle, and then released you. Then you mentioned your children at school. You mentioned remaining in Chicago because, despite your weariness, you adore the city. Rather than asking how much money I make, you asked what my favorite book is. I gave a headshake. I wasn't playing pretend. None of that. My name was the only thing I lied about. And, well, my job. Additionally, I mentioned that I had visited Italy. She blinked. You haven't visited Italy? I muttered. I've been to Epcot's version of Italy. I went into a panic. Her face did something unexpected for me. It broke. Only a bit. Like a chuckle that was attempting to overcome the rage, but wasn't sure if it was appropriate. She mumbled, squeezing the bridge of her nose. Unbelievable. I apologized to Harper. I understand that. I meant well, won't make anything better. I am aware that you had to prepare, mentally prepare, and enter this place unsure of who you would encounter. The person you were promised was someone you deserved. Instead, you got his dumb sibling. That is unfair. She gave me a very close look at that moment, as if she was looking for something in my face that she had seen over the previous hour and a half. She said, so why tell me now? Why not simply disappear and write it out? Wasn't that the plan? I said, because you asked if there would be a next time. And I understood I would be constructing something on a falsehood if I replied in the affirmative. I am unable to accomplish it. Not with you. She remained motionless for a moment. Then she got up and pushed her chair back. My heart fell. Are you heading out? Give me a moment, she said. In a wine bar, I won't yell at you. When I return from the restroom, I'll check myself in the mirror and determine whether or not to hurl this glass of Cabernet in your face. That's fair, I mumbled. With a sardonic little huff, she turned and made her way through the tables toward the back. I felt like the biggest jackass in Chicago as I watched her leave. On the table, my phone buzzed. Liam. Naturally. The preview appeared when I turned it over. How are things going, Liam? Is she a maybe or a psycho? With a burning rage beneath my flesh, I gazed at the television. Before I could come up with a more composed answer, I typed back. Me, she is a human being. There were 3 dots. Vanished. Resurfaced. Liam, is it a yes or no then? I put the phone face down and locked it. Harper didn't appear to have been crying when she returned a few minutes later. She was still wearing makeup. She had not lost her hair. However, she had a new line around her mouth and a new stiffness in her shoulders. She took a slow seat. She remarked, I chose not to waste good wine on you. Not by throwing it, anyway. I answered cautiously. That feels like progress. Avoid pushing it, she said. For a few seconds, we sat in quiet while the flame flickered between us, perhaps attempting to burn itself to end this debate. At last, she said, all right. Ethan, here's the deal. Something felt strange in my chest when she said my true name. You told lies, she continued. However, you also ceased lying. This places you in the middle of confused idiot and total jerk. I'm still not sure which way you lean. I remarked, that's surprisingly generous. Considering the situation. Avoid becoming overly excited, she said. You've got 5 minutes. What is 5 minutes for? To reveal your true identity to me, she said. Not the one your brother offers customers. I don't want the version you believe I do. You. The man who orders Malbec on a blind date because he believes it makes him appear knowledgeable about wine, yet sips cheap beer at home. I felt the heat creep up my neck. You saw that, didn't you? She remarked. Ethan, you recoiled when you took the first sip. It was very cute. I was unable to resist. I chuckled. So I told her. I told her about my experience working in IT for a downtown healthcare company, where I was torn between executives who believed that turning everything off and back on again amounted to a security makeover and doctors who detested their software. I told her about my suburban upbringing and how I was the quiet brother, while Liam occupied every space he entered. I told her about my awful high school band and how, on occasions when the walls felt too tight, I would still play the guitar in my apartment. I concluded by saying, it's not that my life is boring. It's just typical. I assumed you would be disappointed if I appeared as myself, as if you had signed up for something that was a knockoff. She responded, so you try to give me the name brand, and made it worse somehow. Yes, I said. That sounds correct. She stayed silent for a while, her gaze fixed on my face as if she were reading it. You know you're wrong, she said. How about? She remarked, about the knockoff thing. I've gone on dates with lawyers, doctors, and a hedge fund manager on LaSalle. What do you recall about them? What? I inquired. Simply, she said, nothing. They all seemed to be promoting themselves when they spoke. When I asked him what his favorite hue was, you were the first individual who seemed at a loss for words. That seemed real. I took a swallow. By the way, blue is my favorite color. Dark blue. The lake at night, for example. She gave a small smile. You see? It wasn't that difficult. We fell silent once more. What does that leave us with then? I inquired. Harper inhaled and looked at the candle for a moment before turning back to face me. I'm not sure yet, she acknowledged. I have the need to leave and never see you again. I wonder what this evening would have been like if you had approached and introduced yourself as Ethan. I got sucked into this after my brother ran away, but I still kind of want to find out who you are. I remarked, that version sounds so much better. Yes, she concurred. Unfortunately, I don't have that one. I said, is there any way I could make up for it? Not this evening. I am aware that tonight is already a complete disaster. Perhaps, though, at a later date. As I am. Not a pretense. No tiny print about, I'll fill in for my brother. With an almost physical weight to her stare, she examined me. Your name must be the first genuine thing you tell me if there is a next time, she replied slowly. Not the final one. My heart pounded. Ethan, I said. First thing. She exhaled what may have been a small laugh. She stated, I need to give it some thought. Regarding all of this, I don't base important decisions on 2 glasses of wine and an empty stomach. I remarked, that's a very specific rule. So far, it has kept me alive, she answered. At her urging, we split the cost and paid it. Outside, we were surrounded by the cool nighttime Chicago air, city sounds, and the bustle of Clark Street traffic. The warm light from the bars spilled out behind us as we stood on the pavement. So, I replied, is this the end? She bit her lip as if she were weighing something as she glanced up at me. At last, she remarked, let's just call it. To be continued. If I think you deserve a sequel. I was left on the pavement with my true name, my foolish decisions, and a heart that was already wishing for a sequel when she turned and left into the night. My brother unexpectedly came up at my flat 3 days later. He didn't knock in the typical manner. As if the building were on fire, he pounded on the door with the side of his fist. With half a slice of cold pizza in my hand and still wearing sweatpants, I opened it halfway. Liam, what the hell? Wearing a suit that looked like he had just left a loop office, tie loose, expression tight. He pushed past me and into the living room. He demanded to know what you had done. I said, hello. Good morning, come in, how are you? It's good to see you as well. He disregarded that. Alongside Harper. What were you saying? I felt sick to my stomach. You got her call? He paced in front of my coffee table and muttered, worse. She spoke with Ryan. Ryan. His customer. The man who initiated the entire situation. Slowly, I put down the pizza. All right. Commence at the beginning. What took place? He scowled at me and stopped pacing. I spent this afternoon in a meeting. My wife tells me Harper really liked you, but she's confused, Ryan says, dragging me aside after the fact. Mentioned that you weren't truly who you were. Liam raised his hands in the air. Ethan, what was I meant to say in response to that? I flinched. So, she said I wasn't you to them. She did, of course, he yelled. Because you told her you admitted it. I reminded him that you had advised me to be kind. It didn't feel nice to lie to her face for 2 hours. It felt worse to keep lying after she inquired as to if there will be another opportunity. He combed his hair with his hands. You realize how awful this looks? I informed them that I was ill. I asked you to fill in so she wouldn't be stood up since I didn't want to cancel. I made an effort to frame it as this adorable, my brother didn't want you to be alone story. Ryan chuckled. I'm grateful. However, if she had worked harder and made a point of it, she didn't. I interrupted. Did she express her distress? She claimed to be processing, he remarked, using air quotes. Whatever that means. I muttered. It means she's trying to decide whether or not to write me off as a complete disaster. He gazed at me. You like her? There was no question. To refute it, I opened my mouth. I closed it one more. I was obviously not very good at lying. Yes, I said. Yes, I do. With a low whistle, Liam lowered himself onto the couch's arm. Dude, you went on one phony blind date. She wasn't phony, I remarked. The date was real. It was a phony name. There is a distinction. Something changed in his countenance as he gazed at me for a considerable amount of time. Less irritation, more interest, perhaps even guilt. After that, I got a call from Ryan's wife, Emily, he stated. Harper didn't seem to despise you, she remarked. A strange little leap went through my heart. She didn't. Your brother is a fool, but he seemed sincere, Liam recalled her saying. She added that Harper has a soft spot for children who tell lies to keep someone safe. Claimed to have noticed that in you. I released a breath I had been holding without realizing it. That doesn't sound as bad as it could be. Avoid becoming arrogant, Liam said. Additionally, Harper informed Emily that she wasn't sure whether she wanted to see you again. She dislikes playing games. I don't either, I replied. He gave a snort. I could have been duped. There was silence between us. Now what? I inquired. He gave a shrug. Nothing now, I suppose. I'm still in contact with Ryan. Everything is good with the account. Harper is angry, but not to the point of calling the Better Business Bureau. You return to your everyday routine and forget this ever occurred. The thought made my chest hurt. What if I wished to avoid forgetting? He looked at me as if I had just begun to speak a foreign language. He remarked, You hardly know her. I answered, I know enough. I am aware of her concern for her students. She talks about her mother as if she were still there, even though I know she misses her. I am aware that she chooses to remain in a city that drains her because she believes she must somehow improve it. That's more than half of the folks you've introduced me to throughout the years. Liam winced. All right, low blow. Reality, I murmured. Leaning back, he let out a breath. Look, how would that work even if you did want to see her again? Hey, do you remember me, the man who posed as my brother? Would you like to get coffee and put your heart in my hands? Yes, I said. Really? He gave a headshake. You're crazy. Probably, I said. But I have to try if there's even a chance she might give me a real shot. What if she doesn't? He inquired. I answered. Then I have to live with the fact that I ruined something that had the potential to be amazing. It's not exactly a novel sensation. He sighed after observing me for still another long moment. He answered slowly. Harper's number is with Emily. She offered to ask Harper whether she would like to speak with you. Like you. I promised her that I will get back to her. My heart pounded. And, he said, and I haven't yet. Because I was uncertain whether it would improve or worsen the situation. I didn't think twice. Give her a call. I want to see Harper again, tell her. No games. Don't lie. That's it if Harper says no. I'll let it slide. A small smile pulled at his lips. Observe yourself. Large romantic gesture. My big brother. I'm literally asking him to text a married woman to call her friend and ask if she'll allow me to properly apologize, I added. Not quite a scene from a movie. He stood up and answered, Yeah, well, it's your best option. He made his way to the door and stopped, his hand resting on the knob. In any case, he stated without looking back, I should never have asked you to do this. It was self-centered. Sometimes, Ethan, you're a glorified human band-aid. You try to hide my mess and keep the blood hidden. I blinked. Have you simply apologized? He said, Don't push it, and walked away. I received a text message from an unidentified number 2 days later. Unknown, Harper is here. My ribs were struck by my heart. It took me 10 whole seconds of staring at the screen before my thumbs regained their function. Me hello? Ethan is here. Then I became anxious. Hello? I have nothing better than that. There were 3 dots. Vanished. Resurfaced. Harper. Emily and I spoke. Liam too. Me. That sounds risky. A pause. Harper. I was persuaded that you would merit one more discussion. Not a date. A discussion. Unaware that I had been clutching, I let my shoulders relax with relief. Me. I'll accept it. When and where you choose. A public setting. Daylight. Many witnesses. One more beat. Harper. On Saturday. 10 a.m. Belmont's Brewline Coffee. I'll leave if you're late. I'll go if you lie. Me. That's reasonable. I'll arrive early. And truthful. She took a while to reply. My pulse pounded when the 3 dots eventually reappeared. Harper. We'll see. No grin. Don't soften. She hadn't said no, though. Saturday arrived far too quickly. At 9:37, I arrived at Brewline. I sat at a table by the window, ordered a black coffee, and rehearsed my excuses in my mind, hating each one. With the faint murmur of conversation and milk steamers in the background, the place had the aroma of espresso and freshly baked bagels. She entered the room at 9:59. This time, Harper wore trousers tucked into ankle boots, a green sweater, and her hair down about her shoulders. She saw me very immediately. Something flickered in her eyes, perhaps recognition, and then she straightened her shoulders and approached. She remarked, "You're early." "You're punctual," I answered. "It seems like a positive sign." She repeated, "We'll see," but this time there was less ice. She sat opposite me after putting her suitcase down. She placed no orders. I felt sick to my stomach. She declared, "I'm going to avoid the small talk. You were able to reflect. Say what you came here to say," and I did the same. My mouth went suddenly dry as I swallowed. "All right," I replied. "This is it. Now was the time. No, Liam. No customer. Not a lie. Just the truth I should have begun with, a girl I couldn't stop thinking about, and me." I started by saying, "I apologize." She didn't flinch. "For what precisely?" "For accepting something I ought to have declined," I retorted. "For using a different name when I entered that bar. For forcing you to spend an hour and a half with a half-honest person." She nodded once, as if to say, "Go on," but her face remained unsoftened. I said, "I felt like I was helping Liam. I believed I was acting like a good brother. Just one night, nothing bad happened. However, I felt like I had stolen something the moment you looked up and grinned as though you were relieved that I wasn't a total mess." She furrowed her brows a little. "What was stolen?" "Your opportunity to make a decision," I added. "Whom were you meeting? If you desired to be present." "If you desired me. I didn't make that choice. However, I managed to make it." She glanced down at her interlaced hands on the table. She said, "Why didn't you tell me right away?" "Hello. I'm Ethan," you may have said as you approached. "Liam is a fool. In any case, may I sit?" "Because I was afraid," I replied. "Afraid you would go. You'd be afraid to roll your eyes and tell your buddies about the loser whose brother sin is standing. And, to be really honest, I'm afraid you'll see me. Not the glossy version Liam offers customers. Just the normal me." For a moment, she let that to stand between us. She said, "Here's the thing, Ethan. I don't go on many dates." I scowled. "Why not?" Allow me to finish," she interrupted softly. "All day long, I work with children who tell me amazing stories. In 5 seconds, I can tell a lie. Adults? We better disguise our lies. We refer to them as keeping the peace, excuses, or favors." She looked at me like, "You know this is about you." I'm worn out. People offering me a version of themselves they believe I'll enjoy and then expecting me to be appreciative is something I'm sick of. I took a swallow. "I should have given you better than that." "Yes," she acknowledged. However, the word hovered between us like a bridge. "But what?" I inquired. She added, "But you also told me the truth before you had to. You could have abandoned me. You could have continued to pose as Liam and let me learn about it from someone else later. This whole messy coffee shop sequel could have been avoided. You didn't." I said, "I couldn't. It didn't feel right each time you called me Liam. The shoulders didn't fit, as if I were wearing someone else's jacket, and everyone could see it." She smiled for the first time that morning. "Only a bit. Are you aware of what Emily informed me?" Harper inquired. "No, but I feel really anxious right now," I replied. "Harper stated that Liam had called you too honest for your own good, which, given how this began, is hilarious." I answered, "I swear, I usually live up to that. I can prove it with years of uninteresting, direct behavior. My chest started to relax a little when she chuckled. She leaned back a little and whispered, "All right. Tell me something that you were too busy being someone else to tell me on the date." I pondered for a moment. I declared, "I detest Malbec." It sounded fancy, so I ordered it. It was akin to consuming red mud. Since then, I've been craving a cheap beer. She smiled. I was aware of it. "Now it's your turn," I said. "Explain something you didn't say to me." She paused. "All right," she said. "I texted Emily after you made that stupid joke about my tired waterfall hair and the shampoo commercial." My heart faltered. "What were you saying?" I said, "He's hilarious." Her cheeks flushed as she confessed. "I kind of like him." Then I said, "Please be sure he's not secretly terrible." "It's too early to give a definitive response to that," I answered. "But I'm making a lot of effort not to be." Her grin turned into a serious one. "Are you fond of him?" Quietly, I asked. "The actual one, that is." "The man now seated in front of you." She remained silent for a while. As I focused on the small nod she gave, the sounds of the cafe increased, steamer hissing, doors opening, someone laughing behind us, and then subsided. She remarked, "I'm glad he came. I appreciate that he acknowledged his mistake without placing the blame on the universe, his brother, or me. I appreciate that he now appears more apprehensive and is speaking the truth, as opposed to the whole night when he was acting." I answered, "That's because this matters. What you believe. If you're all right. If there's a remote possibility that you'll allow me to repair what I damaged." "It is unfixable," she stated. "However, you can create something fresh. If I permit you to." My heart pounded. "Will you?" She inhaled deeply and exhaled gradually. "This is my situation," she stated. It nearly made me giggle. "You and the circumstances. All right. Strike me. We truly start over if we start over," she stated. "No pressure to go on a blind date. There isn't a client of a brother hanging in the background. Don't act fake. What I can handle is not up to you. Simply be honest with me and let me make the decision." I gave a nod. "Agree. And you don't give me some cryptic non-answer if I ever ask. Will we meet again next time?" She continued. "Either you say yes, as if you mean it, or you say no, and let me go." I was struck in the chest by the title line. I put my forearms on the table and leaned forward. "Harper," I replied steadily. "Would you like to get together again? Not as a setup for a client. Not as a substitute for my brother. Just the two of us." Her eyes searched mine for any hint of doubt as she maintained eye contact. "Yes," she murmured quietly. "Yes, I do." The feeling of relief was like a window being opened in a stuffy room. "All right," I responded, my face slowly lighting up with a smile. "Then, to be really straightforward, here I am. I would like to see you again. The next time, and the time after that. And as often as you permit me to do so." She didn't turn away, even though her cheeks started to blush a little. "All right," she said. "An additional query. Ask anything you want." "That evening at the pub," she recalled. "Were you already considering telling me the truth when I asked if we could meet again?" "Yes," I said. "I knew I couldn't play Liam indefinitely the moment you said it. Not if I had the possibility of being Ethan with you instead." She scooped up my dropped coffee cup with a tiny but genuine smile. She remarked, "You need a refill. And before I consent to see you in public once more, I need something with caffeine." I stood up and said, "I'll get it." "What are you looking for?" "Amaze me," she said. Then he raised an eyebrow and said, "With your real taste. Not as stunning as you may imagine." I said, "Get ready for the most unimpressive vanilla latte in the world." "Excellent," she said. The distance between us at the table felt different when I returned with our drinks. Not bare. Not tense. Open. For an additional hour, we sat there discussing everything and nothing, including her children at school, my awful high school band, and the greatest deep dish in Chicago. We decided to disagree. She made fun of me for ordering a dull cup of coffee. She looked more like one of those serene art instructor Pinterest pictures come to life, I told her, than a tired waterfall. My phone buzzed on the table at one point. "Liam." The preview appeared when I turned it over. "Liam, all right?" Harper looked at me, then at the TV. "Is he there?" she inquired. "Yes," I said. "Do you want me to share anything with him?" After giving it some thinking, she grinned. "Tell him that his plan failed spectacularly," she said. I smiled. "Finished." She gestured with her finger. "And let him know that his brother still has a second opportunity. As oneself. It felt too full in my chest. I typed, "Me, your prank backfired." I admitted it. She is well informed. Hold on. Me. In any case, she consented to see me again. The dots appeared very immediately. Liam, don't make a mistake. I hung up the phone. When we eventually got up to go, the city was awake all around us as we stepped out onto Belmont United in the beautiful late morning sun. "So, may I walk you home?" I asked, putting my hands in my pockets to prevent myself from reaching for hers too fast. "Or to the train, anyway?" Her lips quirked as she looked at me. "Yes," she replied. "You can accompany me on a walk." With our shoulders nearly touching, we fell into step. A block later, her voice was quieter. "Ethan." "Yes." Her eyes were no longer guarded as she gazed up at me. "When can we get together again?" she inquired. I didn't think twice. "Yes," I said. "We'll." And the answer felt utterly, absolutely accurate for the first time since that night in the wine bar.
If you felt good in this story, stay with us. Like, subscribe, and join me in the next one.